China-Russia trade soars, highlighting bipolar world. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, Western countries have imposed sanctions on Russia, but Beijing continued to provide support to Moscow, and the trade volume between the two sides has increased significantly. Commentators believe that this shows that the Chinese government has openly aligned itself with Russia, and that a confrontation between the two major camps in the world has been formed. Trade relations between China and Russia have heated up rapidly in recent times. On October 23rd, at the China-Russia Trade Fair held in Shenyang, Liaoning, companies from both sides signed a large number of cooperation agreements. State media said that from January to September this year, 40 Russian companies set up branches in Liaoning, and Liaoning's total exports to Russia increased by 82.3% year-on-year. Lan Shu, a senior media person and current affairs commentator, said this shows that China and Russia have basically formed a state of alliance with each other. It is an ideological choice. To consolidate its own rule, China is facing the entire economy that has an impact on its ideology. It needs to move to the left and go back. Then it is absolutely impossible for it to go together with Western countries. According to Lan, in order to continue its authoritarian rule, China is openly hostile to the entire free world. A confrontation between the two major international camps has taken shape. In the future, the United Nations will move towards a situation where black and white are increasingly clear and the two sides are confronting each other. Countries such as the CCP, Russia, and Iran in Eurasia have formed an anti-American alliance. Under this situation, the CCP has begun to ally with all these countries that are enemies of the free world. Current affairs commentator Yu Lowen believes that the Chinese communist regime is facing a crisis and has openly joined forces with authoritarian countries in the world to try to ease the pressure. Current affairs commentator Luo Wen said, Beijing knows that it cannot solve its current predicament at all, because their system itself cannot tolerate freedom of speech and human rights, and they also know that the West has imposed sanctions on it. It believes that instead of being so uncomfortable, it would be better to publicize its alliance with Russia so that two camps will be formed. According to Luo, the Chinese government may think when two countries boost their ties like this, they don't have to be secretive but openly in the future. In an article posted on Foreign Policy in September, Jo Inge Bekkevold is a senior China fellow at the Norwegian Institute for Defense Studies and a former Norwegian diplomat, also shared the same opinion about the future world. He said, "That day is still far off. We will be living in a bipolar world for the foreseeable future." China's nature exposed via Foxconn probe. Recently, the Chinese government suddenly implemented tax and land inspections on key enterprises under the Foxconn Group in mainland China. Hong Kong commentator Yan Chungu posted on Facebook, commenting that this has caused Foxconn, which has long been regarded as a major foreign investment center and one of the largest employers in China, to suddenly be under China's iron fist of proletarian dictatorship. Terrigu announced his independent candidacy, putting Kuomintang, KMT, candidate Ho Yui in a tough fight. Although blue and white have the motivation to coordinate, the issue of who is positive and who is negative cannot be resolved. Therefore, Gao's thin share of blue camp votes has become an important factor in the election. Gao insists on running, and Ho Yui basically has no hope. If Gao withdraws from the candidacy, although Hu may not be guaranteed to win, he will at least have a little more room for maneuver. Therefore, when the blue and white are not in harmony, forcing Guo to withdraw is what China is eager to do. Ever since Gu announced his candidacy, China has used both soft and hard tactics to persuade Guo to put the overall situation first. Unfortunately, Guo remained unmoved and insisted on going his own way, even choosing a candidate for vice president. Now that the election day is getting closer and closer, seeing that the KMT has no solution, the CCP has no choice but to use the attack on Foxconn as a means to force Terrigu to submit. This is the insidious intention of the CCP's politics of coercion. Since China's reform and opening up, Foxconn has set up factories all over the mainland to make Apple products. The workers Foxconn has hired, the taxes it has paid, the regional industrial clusters it has driven, and the foreign exchange it has earned have all contributed greatly to the nation's economic takeoff. The reason why the CCP is so vicious is because there is no way out. In order to protect its own interests, it does not care about kindness or legal principles. It has always been the Chinese Communist Party's code of conduct to turn its back on others. There is no word of friendship in the Chinese Communist Party's dictionary. It is simply a piece of cake to be ungrateful and burn bridges. Put interests first, grudges second, right and wrong third. I would rather bear the world than let the world bear me. Someone on the internet earlier listed a table of the CCP's losses to the US, starting from the Boxer indemnity to aid the construction of Union Hospital and Tsinghua University, to the Flying Tigers during the anti-Japanese war, to the admission of Chinese students in the early stages of reform and opening up, to the most favored nation treatment. From joining the United Nations to joining the United Nations, etc., it explains how successive American governments have treated China well, and how China regards the US as its number one enemy. In fact, not only the US but also the Chinese Communist Party is not equally ungrateful to the people of Hong Kong. Hong Kong people were the first to invest in the mainland, introducing financial talents and management experience. Hong Kong culture sent the first breath of fresh air to the mainland's sluggish social atmosphere. When there are natural and man-made disasters on the mainland, Hong Kong people mobilize to donate money and materials to relieve China's urgent needs. Not only does Beijing have no sense of gratitude, it keeps plotting against Hong Kong people, invading every door step by step, tearing up the basic law, and ultimately suppressing the Hong Kong people's resistance with violence. Looking further back at the beginning of the revolution, the Chinese regime instigated workers and peasants to participate in the revolution in the name of liberating the working people, promising a happy life after the revolution succeeded. The workers and peasants at the bottom of Chinese society fought and sacrificed for the CCP revolution. In the end, the revolution was successful, but the CCP became the only employer in the country. It was the Chinese government who exploited the workers and peasants, oppressing them. All the wealth of the people became the private property of the regime. As for Chinese intellectuals, that goes without saying. In the middle and late stages of the anti-Japanese war, the CCP tricked a large number of intellectuals from the occupied areas into Yan'an to participate in the revolution. During the negotiations between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party, it also enlisted the intelligentsia to support the CCP. Until the civil war between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party, a large number of intellectuals from the Kuomintang-controlled areas helped the CCP with propaganda, organized rallies and protests, and weakened the Kuomintang's rule. Unfortunately, after the Chinese Communist Party came to power, it treated intellectuals as slaves. Once they disobeyed, they would impose brutal mental and physical persecution. The CCP's shameless face comes from the original social elements. Except for a very small number of intellectuals who were marginalized by society, the majority of the basic team of the CCP in its early days were lumpen proletarians in the countryside. These people did not have permanent assets, did not have enough food to feed themselves, were not enlightened by knowledge, and participated in the revolution only for the sake of survival, with no moral and ethical standards in their minds. The most typical representative is Mao Zedong. The party culture of the Chinese Communist Party is basically a concentrated amplification of Mao's personal outlook on life. Li Rui once quoted Mao's first wife Yang Kaihui as saying that Mao was a political hooligan and a life hooligan. After Mao took power in the CCP, he used his outlook on life to manage the CCP and govern the country. Therefore, the entire CCP system is filled with Mao's style of party culture, of doing whatever it takes to achieve the goal. Within the CCP, there is basically no normal human relationship. There are only disputes over interests, not kindness and righteousness. Therefore, today Xi Jinping has inherited Mao's political legacy and regards morality and ethics as nothing. In order to please the CCP, the Kuomintang did not hesitate to sell Taiwan and seek glory. However, if you look at what happened to Terry Gou, you will understand the consequences of flattering the CCP. Once you are a slave, you will be a slave for life. Instead of trying to please the CCP to lure wolves into the house, the Kuomintang should better manage its own territory and engage in legitimate party competition. In this way, not only will it not bring humiliation to itself, but it will also have the opportunity to compete with the DPP. Otherwise, like Terry Gou, who wants to be humiliated but also wants to disobey orders, it is dangerous to advance, and it is shameless to retreat. At this point, it will be difficult for gods to save him. This time, Terry Gou lost his ambitions and money. He failed because he misjudged the CCP and believed that the CCP had a moral bottom line. Unfortunately, the CCP regards morality as nothing and changes its face as soon as it becomes arrogant.
Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from Understand China, and thank you for tuning in.